Okay, students, we're going to talk about the email self-quiz. The email self-quiz. Uh, what we've done right here, what I've done is I put just about everything related to emails here and email safety. Maybe not everything, but most important things. And then you'll take a short little quiz that kind of reviews some of these concepts. Now, in the classroom, I have some better examples that I show, but since we're doing the first semester online, we're going to have to make this work. Okay, so a couple of things here. Parts of an email, just scrolling down. You always start with when you're sending the email, like we've done before, you're sending it to the person's username. So in this case, the unique username would be Jack and Jill. The @ tells us where it's going to, which server. Okay, in this case, the server is gmail.com, which is also the domain name that's providing the service. So we have the username, the server name, and then the domain name type right here. Okay, second fact, when we're sending an email to, from, subject, CC, BCC, all these options when you send an email that pop up in Gmail too. Obviously, to is who you're sending it to. Okay, from is who the message is from. The subject is what it's about. So you always want to get a good subject line so people will actually open up the email. Because if you don't put a subject line or you put a very lame subject line, people may not open your email. CC means corresponding or carbon copy, so you can send a copy of that email to somebody. Actually, in the olden days of carbon copies, you would actually type out a memo or memorandum on a typewriter, and then they would run it through a carbon copy machine. That's what would be called a carbon copy because somebody else would get a copy of that message. In this case, we're dealing with email, so the term CC, carbon copy, still sometimes referenced or corresponding copy. BCC, blind carbon copy or blind corresponding copy. Copy of an email to another person with the to and CC not knowing. So I could send an email to one student and then I could send a copy of that without the original person knowing that I sent it to them. That's what we call blind carbon copy. Number 3 is the attachment button. So the attachment buttons when we need to attach a file. Maybe we need to attach a Microsoft Word document or we need to attach a series of photos. You would click the paperclip to attach. On every email, I would say about the universal symbol for attachments is the paperclip. The paperclip. The universal symbol for attachments. You might see that as a question coming up here soon. Okay, number 4 is spam. Spam is unwanted email or spoofing attempts. We always want to make sure we delete spam or block it. I get so much spam, it doesn't really make sense to really report it, but I do occasionally will block or hit the block button that's featured in Google, or sometimes Google just detects it automatically and I don't really need to do anything about it and puts it right into my spam folder. When in doubt, never respond back. Make contact with the person sending in person via phone call to confirm the message is necessary. So it's very easy for one of you to pretend that you're me via email. You can just put your name as Kevin Gary and send it to random people. And if they were confused, hopefully they would reach out to me and actually call me on this device or text and say, hey, did you send that message or email? And I'd say, no, I don't know who sent that. Somebody's probably being silly. We actually have an example of this below. So this is our principal, Mr. Dean. A lot of teachers thought this email was actually sent by Mr. Dean, and it was not. And so this message came to all the teachers and staff. It said, are you still available in the office? And poor Mr. Dean got all these messages. Hey, I don't remember you having a meeting with us. So obviously, people out there will use other people's names and pretend to be them in an attempt to kind of get them to respond or respond with information. So if you're unsure of the message, always check the email. In this case, I know this was not Mr. Dean's email, so it's very suspicious. And so red flag, that's not him. Okay, another example too of a spam or spoof email. I don't know how many of you have bank accounts. Some of you do, some of you don't. Okay, but it's very easy for people to pretend to be your bank. So the one thing you always want to check is look at where the email is coming from right here. Okay, the from name is Chase, but the email is not from Chase right here. So that's one. It's some server in Brazil is sending it. Why would some server in Brazil want to pretend to be Chase? Maybe they want to steal my account information. Note the two is to undisclosed recipients. So it's not even to me, it's just to a whole bunch of people. It's one big mass email account. The other thing too is if you hover over some of these links here, they go to very suspicious locations. So you don't want to really click those because then they could trigger other things, which is trying to steal data about you or request things about you. So when in doubt, your bank's never going to send a message like this to confirm your online banking account by entering all your personal information in. So they may send you an identification number to type into a login screen, something like that, but they're never going to tell you to give your social security number and personal information. So when in doubt, always call your bank if you think something's wrong or you feel something's weird, I guess. Okay, so you'll start the little quiz right here. It'll ask you questions like who the message is going to, who's it from, okay, what's wrong with this link right here? Okay, is it really going to UPS? It says it in the email, but when I hover my mouse over, it's going to some other server. So that's very suspicious. So you always got to make sure when you get these messages from legitimate companies that they're actually from the legitimate company and not just some fake person trying to steal your data. Okay, we talked about what email messages, the breakdown of it. So we have the username, at means where it's redirecting to, in this case, the server and the domain name right there. Okay, we go down right here. There'll be some questions right here in terms of what the subject line is of the email. Number 6, hopefully I explain what CC and 2 and BC and subject line is a little bit. We go down to number 8. I talked about the universal symbol for attachments. I think I mentioned it 2 or 3 times. Okay, number 9, I'll have to explain. According to history and Mr. Gary, the term carbon copy and blind carbon copy, I mentioned it a little bit about it, but it actually comes from the world of memos and memorandums. So it comes from a time when we sent paper memos around. So before we sent emails back to each other, we would actually type out memorandums, and then we would copy the memorandums and send them within an office setting or a school setting with staff. Usually, you'll still see some memos being passed around in professional office settings, but email has replaced the need to write a lot of memos. Okay, that's the task right here. Hopefully, you will do well. You get 3 attempts. If you need more and you're struggling, just reach out to me. I'm sure we'll figure something out. Okay, have a good day, folks.